Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Luminary Podcast. I am your host, Annie Perry, professional psychic, channel, seer, and manifestation and spirituality teacher. Welcome back. If you are tuning in again, I am so grateful to have you here. And if this is your first episode that you are ever listening to from my podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is going to be a mind-blowing episode. There is just only one way to put it. I have spent over a week preparing this episode because there is so much amazing information. If you have ever suspected that you or someone you know might be a Blu-ray soul, or you've had curiosities about the soul types, what they came here to do, and especially if you loved the Galactic War series that is, in fact, still ongoing. There are going to be more parts to that, but I've already completed a few parts to that really big overarching story. So if you love information about like the Galactic Wars and how Earth came to be and how all of these souls came to be here, you're going to absolutely love this episode. It's going to really blow your mind, and it's going to really clarify, especially if you are a Blu-ray, why you are the way that you are. So many of our own tendencies, our own desires. We're going to talk about some of the core wounds that a Blu-ray has, how to identify if you are a Blu-ray, and of course, what our soul mission is. And you can even probably already tell by the way that I'm talking about it that I am a Blu-ray soul, and I'm also a Blue Flame channel, and we'll talk about the differences between those two, what it means to be both, and what kind of flame you might have. So this episode is really like a full meal deal, and I'm really, really excited to share all of this information with you guys. First, though, I have to make the announcement that it is that time of year. The annual offer suite sale is on. Each year, I do something different as a sale, as a way for you guys to save lots of money, to manifest more money into your pocket while still getting the course or the activation that you have been wanting. And each year, I just listen to my intuition and my higher levels, so it's a little bit different every year, but this year, it is pretty fucking awesome, very straightforward. Every course and activation on my website is 50% off. There are 29 different offers across courses, masterclasses, and activations that are available on my website that are part of this 50% off. So you definitely want to take some time to browse through all of the options. And I've been talking about it daily on my Instagram stories to help you guys figure out which courses are best for you. But honestly, the most ideal way to shop with anything is to listen to your intuition. So you can use code Lightbringer to get that 50% off all courses, masterclasses. So many of you guys have already been shopping that sale, getting courses and things that you've been eyeing for a long time, manifesting them into your life. I could not be more happy for you guys. And it's just a way for me once a year to say thank you, to give something back to you guys, and to be the path of least resistance for some of these manifestations. So you can find all of those on wellspringofficial.com. And again, that is code Lightbringer. So as I'm recording this, we are just getting into the last week of October. And October has been an absolute powerhouse of timeline convergence. We are seeing timelines left, right, front, and center, dissolving, dropping off, merging together. I told my guides this morning, I feel like I'm in the video game Tron. Or was that an arcade game first? Whatever it was, that's what I feel like I'm in, because it's just like all of these timelines, the way that I see them are golden lights and almost like these golden pathways or strings stretching out into the quantum field. And I mean, they're just moving at rapid pace. So you are shedding identities. You are shedding old timelines. So much of what we have been dealing with for the past 15 years is falling off. It's dropping away. You're alchemizing it at a rapid speed. You're having revelations left, right, front, center. They're dropping down on top of you. You're walking your dog down the street and you're having a revelation about something in your life, and you're stepping into a new timeline where you have higher level of awareness. It's moving so fast. Trying to keep track of all of it is somewhat challenging. I have given up a little bit on trying to track all of my revelations and things coming through, because it's just happening so often throughout the entire day. You guys heard on the last episode, I was talking about just sitting at my desk, getting ready for work one day, and just having this complete transcendental experience seemingly out of the blue, and yet everything comes at the exact right, perfect time. And you're really going to come to a place where you just have to trust. You just have to trust that your higher levels have got you. They've always had you. They've always had your back. They have always guided you as much as they can. They're not going to let you fall off into some, terrible timeline in the pits of hell or something. No. You are here. You're in the middle of ascension. You're raising your awareness. You are breaking through to new levels of consciousness. It only gets better and better from here. Don't pay too much attention to what's happening in the 3D world. Again, all of that is just mirroring the internal conflict that humanity is trying to resolve within themselves. And in fact, if you flip back just a couple of episodes, I created a global unity activation. And so it's like a meditation, but you merge your energy with everyone who has done the activation so far. We merge our energy in the quantum field, and we send tremendous amounts of high frequency energy to people who are being affected by natural disasters. There's been a lot of flooding, a lot of storms going on in different parts of the world right now, or human conflict. And we already know there is a lot of human conflict going on. And if that really is pulling at your heartstrings and you feel like, I want to do something, but something that doesn't trigger me to get angry and to start dropping my frequency, do the global unity activation. You're going to be serving from a very high frequency. You're going to be locking in your own high frequency. And so true highest wealth is where we all get blessed and no one gets left out. That is unity consciousness. That is the law of one. And you can do it as many times as you want. You can direct it towards people that you know. You can direct it towards certain parts of the planet. You can direct it towards wherever you are feeling called. And you're going to be creating a huge energetic blessing. You've had blessings in your own life where help has come out of thin air, where miracles have happened. And that could be because someone sent out a blessing to a group of people and you were a part of that group of people. So it's a great way for us to step up as light leaders, light workers, starseeds, fulfilling our soul mission, helping others, being of service. And also in that meditation, you are blessing yourself as well so that you are getting the help and support that you need for your own life. All right, so let's jump into talking about the blue rays. And the blue rays are a soul group, a very specific soul group that has played a major role in the ascension of Earth over the last 40 years. That has been the majority of their work. And I'm pleased to say that when our mission, we'll talk about mission at the very end, when our mission is complete and kind of wrapped up, we get to just lean back and enjoy life on this planet. So it's not going to be that forever the blue rays are playing this crucial role. In fact, most of our work was done prior to 2012. And some of our work has really come to the forefront after 2020. That's just a different group that was activated within the blue rays. So you could be an older blue ray who maybe had your awakening. A lot of them woke up right around 2000, 2001, and the majority of your work was completed before 2012. I'm a part of a later activation group. I'm a part of the 2020 activation group. And so my work is still ongoing, but I can feel how much of it is actually wrapping up. And it's only been 5 years. So things are moving pretty quickly around here. And I want to say, before I start to tell the story of how the blue rays were formed, where they come from, I'm going to tell this story in the best way that I can. Many channels and spiritual teachers have their own unique way of talking about the different soul groups. Some of them, their entire mission is just to explain soul groups. And some of them are blue rays who just talk and teach about being a blue ray. And Dolores Cannon is probably the most famous person in the kind of spiritual world that talked about soul groups. So this is my way of understanding it and teaching it, what I've downloaded from the Akashics, and I'm going to tell it in a linear story format. And I'm going to ignore simultaneous time. We already know that in the higher dimensions, time is simultaneous, but it doesn't make for a very good story if I tell it in simultaneous time, right? Linear time, another word that you could use for that is story, right? I'm going to tell you a beginning, a middle, an end. So I'm going to stretch out this spiral of infinite simultaneous time into a nice, beautiful line, and I'm going to tell it as a story. And I think that your human mind is really going to enjoy that a lot more. So the simplest way to think about the different soul groups that we join on this path of progression is, number one, you have the self-aware soul. Then you join your galactic family, typically around fourth density consciousness. Join your galactic family, eventually you become extraterrestrial, which means that you'll probably leave your home planet, you'll probably travel on ships, you'll probably go to other planets at some point in your journey, and maybe you'll return back to your planet of origin. And then we graduate into Ascended Master and Ascended Master groups. And this can happen in fourth density. We start to create these kind of smaller social memory complexes, and they typically will create a name for third density beings like ourselves to identify them as. And that is an Ascended Master group. And then eventually that Ascended Master group will become a larger social memory complex that's usually about planetary level, and that will be considered the higher self. And then they will go on to become an angelic, and then they will progress into archangelic and Elohim levels. So that's path of progression for the soul across densities of consciousness and with the construct of time. And all of these groups do experience a form of time, but it is nowhere near as slow and sluggish as what we experience here in third density. And if you listened to my light body episodes where I was reading chapters from Archangel Ariel, she even says, yes, I experience a form of time as an archangel. So then when we're talking about the rays, the soul groups as rays, right? We're talking about the blue ray group right now. The rays are primarily associated with the Ascended Masters. The Ascended Masters are masters of a certain ray. They're not a master of a people or a group of people. They are a master of a certain ray of energy. And you guessed it, those are the 7 rays, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And within that, they can master other rays such as the pink ray, the rainbow ray, silver rays. There's all kinds of sub-energies that they can also master. So it's not going to be uncommon if you meet someone and they're really specific about what they're working on and they're like, I'm from the teal ray. That's not going to be someone that's an illegitimate ascended master. It means that they're working on something very specific. So the way that I like to clarify this is that when I say human or 3D, I'm referring to your self-aware nature. When I say starseed, I'm referring to your galactic nature. When I say blue ray, green ray, crystalline, rainbow, I'm referring to your ascended master nature. When I say your white, golden, silver light, I'm referring to your angelic nature. All of that exists within you simultaneously. You are the whole package. You've got all the bits. It's all available for you to tap into, to channel, to embody as you desire to authentically do so. So the way that this works pre-incarnation, as you're deciding what kind of ray you want to be inside of a certain lifetime, when you come into an incarnation, your oversoul, which is the total sum of all your incarnations, past, present, future, as a collective, your oversoul selects the part of itself that is best suited to the task of what you want to learn and express in that incarnation. So for example, the blue ray is part of every oversoul, but only some of us are expressing that ray in this specific incarnation. Some of you are expressing yellow, red, orange, violet, and no, this does not have anything to do with your aura colors. Your aura is totally different than the ray that you came here to express. It has much more to do with your soul mission and the tone of your energy. Your aura is more like the health of your energy. So the two other groups that we are going to talk about, because they are deeply connected to the blue rays, are the rainbow souls and the crystalline children. I don't tend to call them rainbow rays or crystalline rays, but that would not be incorrect. And I also want to mention that a rainbow soul is totally different than the human term rainbow baby. Those are not the same concepts. One is human created, the other one is from your oversoul. And I'll be talking a little bit about the crystalline children because right now most of them are children. That's why we use that terminology. If you had a child after 2020, you have an extremely high likelihood that your child is a crystalline child. And I will describe what those are. Some of them came as early as 2018, but really not before then, because the density on the planet was too much and they are a very high frequency. Many blue and rainbow souls are going to have crystalline children or care for crystalline children in this lifetime. And I really want to draw attention to how to care for them. And we might even do a whole other episode on that, but it's really, really important because the crystalline are the opposite of the blue rays, right? The blue rays are what is commonly called in the Akashics the warriors that were sent. And they are the not so delicate souls. So let's talk about how they came to be and how they formed as a group and how they came to be here on Earth. So when the last planet in Orion fell, when the timelines were all looking like this planet, there were 6 planets in Orion, and when it started to look like this planet is going to fall, all of these souls are going to end up leaving this planet, and there was kind of this like soul refugee crisis. All of these planets turning to the dark side gives all of these souls who choose not to be service to self, which is the 99.9% of souls on a planet that are going to go in the path of service to others, it gives them no home, nowhere to have their incarnations. So they need planets, especially for those who are in third density. They need a third density planet to incarnate on. So the Galactics and Ascended Masters, they were already dealing with the crisis that happened in Maldek, which was nuclear war, blowing up their entire planet, making it totally inhospitable to their life forms. All of those souls had to be evacuated. And then we had Mars, who did the exact same thing, blew themselves to hell. Now their planet is uninhabitable. And we've got all of these souls that are still on the karmic path, that are still exploring third density, and nowhere to incarnate them. So they need a home. And the Galactics and Ascended Masters are really the ones kind of working under, I'm going to use the word supervision, but you have to understand it is a very loving supervision from angelics and archangelics about like where are we going to take all of these souls? Like where are they going to incarnate? And also we're kind of reaching a deadline here of the Karmic Game ending inside of our universe, our local universe. And so if you have this karmic game that's ending, you have an expiration, you have all of these souls that need time to still figure out what it is that they want to do, and you need a planet that's still in third density to host them. Now, the pocket of time that a planet is in third density is very small compared to the billions of years that it spends in first and second and fifth density. So they were looking at some pretty limited options, but one of the options was Gaia, right? Earth, as we call her. And she was going to be in third density, but she had this caveat that she was a garden planet, a planet where they keep all of the local templates that are used to seed other planets. She's a living library. So it's kind of like, we need somewhere to have Fight Club, and the only place available is the library. But what the Galactics and Ascended Masters saw was an opportunity to have a little bit more influence on these souls that had been dealing with war, nuclear war, battles for a very long time, and they were very prone to creating more war. But if they hosted this karma game on a garden planet, it allowed them to have a say over the free will of Gaia. If Gaia's free will is threatened and these templates are threatened, because the templates are for the highest good of all, it gives them a pathway to step in and prevent things like another all-out nuclear war destroying the entire planet. Whereas they could not do that on those other planets because there was no living library to protect. So they have to always weigh where is the highest good of all, and because the templates affect so many more souls in this universe than just the ones who would be on the planet, then the living library outweighs the free will of the inhabitants when it comes to interference. That's why the Galactics show up at nuclear sites and tell them, you're not shooting any of these off, and we have authority to prevent you from doing that because the preservation of the templates is the number one priority. The preservation of the templates was part of the deal that was struck with Gaia. Gaia was going to leave third density, and she said, number one, I want you to protect these templates and interfere and not allow them to be destroyed if the inhabitants are going to take action that would destroy them. Number two, I want to ascend as well. I want to be a fifth dimensional planet. And they said, great, deal. And so the plan was set in motion. Now, this was before the rise of Lemuria. This was before Atlantis. This was before humans were the dominant species on this planet. Humans have gone through a lot of prototypes here and many different evolutions, but they knew, based on how they read the timelines, that 2012, as we call it, they knew that that time would come. And it would be the end of third density, that they would help us ascend. They would help Gaia ascend. Anyone who didn't want to ascend could easily be exited from the planet, and they'll be guided somewhere else where they can continue having a karmic experience. It's really not as big of a deal as a lot of us make that. You end up with everyone that you know anyway. So I always have to remind myself of that when there is someone that I'm particularly not vibing with. I'm like, someday in like a million years, we're going to merge consciousness, and hopefully by then I'll be feeling a little better about you. All right. So they have this plan, but then the actual karma game itself has to be played out and in linear time too. So we had to have the rise and fall of Lemurian Atlantis. We had to have a time when humans would be the dominant species. They had to go through all of their different evolutions. We had to actually get to 2012, which was the hard date on the calendar of like, shit has to be figured out within a small margin of error by this time. So starting right around the 1800s, that's when we started to have a lot of ships surrounding the planet, paying very close attention to what humans were doing, to what we were thinking, where our level of consciousness was, what kind of actions we were taking, what kind of wars we were creating, versus how peaceable we were. And they watched very, very closely. And right around 1880, they were like, shit. Okay, I'm over dramatizing a little bit in my interpretation from them because Galactics and Ascended Masters don't actually say, oh shit, but that's kind of how we would interpret it. They had a little oh shit moment. And they were realizing that there were a lot of other characters at play that wanted a piece of what was going on in this planet. So we started to have a lot of interference. And as fast as we were evolving, getting out of the 1800s and getting into the 20th century, there started to be a lot of interference on this planet. So as early as 1800s, they realized that they were going to need to call in backup. They sent out a call to the oversoul groups that were involved in this karma game, and they said, who wants to send one of their incarnations to be on Earth? Like, who do you have? Like, what have you got? What have you got available? Do you have a part of yourself that's been struggling with karma, that has been through a lot of wars? Because we're doing a big karma cleanup over on Isle Gaia, and we could use some of those to help do it. And there's a reason for that. Out of this group that they called together, many smaller groups were formed. And all of us are referred to as the volunteers. You've probably heard this term before, especially from Dolores Cannon. Dolores liked to tell it in waves, the waves of volunteers. I personally prefer to tell it in soul groups. And there is some overlap, but it's not quite exact. Each wave would have a different mixture of soul groups based on many different factors. Who was ready? What was going on the planet at the time? What kind of incarnations were we pulling from? What kind of karma packets were we creating? There's so much that goes into it. It would absolutely blow your mind. So out of these groups that they were forming, they were like, we need different energies based on what we have to deal with here. There is a ton of unresolved karma that the Earth souls are not quite ready to resolve yet, but it has to get resolved in order for the planet herself to ascend. And this was like the equivalent of the president saying, we need Navy SEALs to deal with a very big issue. We need the most badass, the hardest, we need the most badass, hardest motherfuckers that you've got. Like, what can you come up with? We need souls that have a ton of grit, because dealing with karma is no joke. It's challenging. Being in a low frequency is challenging. You guys have experienced this throughout your life of feeling like, what the fuck? Why is it so challenging to be here? Like, yes, this is a beautiful planet. There's so much to enjoy, but also, what the fuck did I sign up for? So they formulated this group by calling on the blue and the indigo rays of consciousness, which are representative of the 5th and 6th density consciousness, wisdom, and balancing love and wisdom. Because they saw how that energy would balance out what energies were already at play on the planet. Now, there's 3 different things that they mixed together to create these incarnations. Number 1, they were going to channel the blue and indigo ray from the Oversoul. Next, they were going to create a heavy package of karma that the Oversoul wanted to resolve from itself. The third thing is that they would choose a point in consciousness that would be slightly ahead of its last linear incarnation. And what that means is that your soul is from a point in your consciousness that's about 150 to 250 years ahead of where we are right now. This is why starseeds feel like, no one understands me. No one gets it. No one sees the vision. No one gets what we're trying to do here. It's because you're literally from the future. You're not from the point in consciousness where you're in 5th or 6th density, which would be billions of years in the future, because you would be too advanced. And when you come here, then you would end up, if you did wake up, you'd end up being like a Jesus or a Buddha. They came from many millions and billions of years in the future. That's the point in consciousness that their soul was. But they didn't want there to be millions of gurus on the planet. They wanted people that could resolve these karma packets to lift the frequency of the planet. Dealing with karma is a messy business. So they're like, we need souls that have like grit, that have been through war and have learned their lessons, that have distilled the wisdom out of their experiences, so that they don't get back into the same old loops that some of the Earth souls were stuck inside of. We need them to have just the right blend of energy that not only will they wake up, but they will feel compelled to resolve this karma packet. And in their resolving of this karma packet, they will influence and show others that it is possible. So what makes blue rays different than the other rays that are here working and rainbows that are very closely associated with the blue rays is the heavy karma packet. If you've ever gone hiking or going hiking to camp somewhere, you know that there are all different sizes of backpacks that you can get. The blue rays were like, we'll take the biggest one that has the heaviest load, the heaviest weight, and those coming in to support us on this journey will have a smaller karmic packet. So they can help keep a frequency that's higher while they're around us in order for us to not get too discouraged as we deal with this very heavy packet. Or what some of us just like to refer to as our baggage. Right? The reason I call it a packet is because when you're dealing with karmic codes, that's just what they're called. They're called they're packets of information. Kind of like a digital download or a file. They can collect a bunch of karma from your Akashic records and put them together inside of a packet and send that with you into the lifetime. And in order for them to have the highest chance of success, the Oversoul needed to choose a pretty tough part of themselves to do this task. That's how the Blue Rays got their nickname, the Blue Ray Warriors. To toughen them up, the Oversoul strongly associated all lifetimes where they were warriors, soldiers, strategists, leaders, where they went through some hell and just generally had a tough time. They associated all of that strongly with the karmic packet so that it would be encoded into them and give them some grit to toughen them up in order to be able to do this. So for example, in my own experience, when I was doing a lot of like past life healing in order to help me resolve some of the karma and trauma that I experienced in this lifetime, it was like the worst of the worst. It was like suicide, abandonment, death in childbirth, abuse, death by depression, feeling lost, having diseases and illnesses. It was like the worst of the worst, even though there's lifetimes that I've had that were just like fluffy rainbows. And I have felt this natural compulsion to resolve it, to deal with it, to get in there, to dig it out, to cut through the bullshit, and to go on what many people call the healing journey, which I now call the wholeness journey, because when you get to the end of that yellow brick road of chaos, you realize that you were always whole to begin with, and that's part of what you're learning as you're dealing with karma. Karma is not a bad thing. It's not an evil thing. It is a teacher. It teaches you in order for you to raise your consciousness. So through everything that you've gone through and everything that you've brought into awareness, everything that you feel like you've healed about yourself or you've realized was always whole about yourself anyway, all of that is you raising your consciousness, raising your consciousness, raising your consciousness. And as you raise those points of consciousness, you close the karmic loop, and the karma is resolved. You've literally transformed it from one expression to a new expression. And we'll talk about that more in a second. I do want to talk about the being from the future thing. So, like I said, you're not from millions or billions of years, but they did take a lot of time to really pinpoint a place in the future that would be most beneficial for you to channel into this point in time. For example, my last linear incarnation, I was born in 1969 and then I left in 1985. When it appears that I returned in linear time in 1991 as Annie Perry, my consciousness was actually from about 200 years in the future. It's kind of like the Terminator movies, other movies where someone is sent from the future back in time to change the outcome of the future. And yeah, you're allowed to do that in the grand scheme of how the universe plays out. So they saw some negative outcomes for Earth that were not going to honor the agreement that they had with Gaia, and that is why they had to formulate this plan. That is why they had to call in the volunteers. That's why they had to create these different soul groups. And that is why your point in consciousness that you're channeling into this reality that becomes very apparent, especially after you've had your spiritual awakening. You're like, why do I see everything differently than everyone else around me? Why do I feel like I have understandings about things? Why do I feel like I can sense the future? Part of that is because the consciousness that you're channeling is literally from the future. And it's not just your understanding of simultaneous time that allows you to do that. That allows you to pull information from different points in the future or past, as we refer to them. But when the consciousness that you are channeling into this lifetime is from the future point, it deeply affects your personality. Whereas you being engaged with simultaneous time doesn't really affect your personality, but what you've channeled into this lifetime from the future absolutely affects your personality. The things that you like, things that you're good at, the things that you're into, the things that you want to create, what you kind of see for yourself in the future. It could be habits or tendencies that you have. All these little aspects that make up your personality and what you're into, essentially, is deeply affected by the point in consciousness that you are channeling right now. So the blue rays themselves tend to be in the range of 150 to 250 years in the future. Some of the rainbows are as much as 500 years in the future. And the crystalline children are from about 1,000 to 2,000 years in the future. Yes, your kids, especially if you plan on having kids in the next 10 years or so, are going to be so wildly different than we were. No matter how much we think we've progressed and we have created change and evolution in our lives, they are going to blow us out of the water. And it's going to be awesome because that's what we want. That's what we came here to do. All right, so let's talk about when they started to incarnate. We've talked about how they were formulated, how the Oversoul kind of created these specific incarnations that were going to do this job and come in as volunteers to help this ascension. So they created this soul group who had this like warrior energy, and the plan was that they would begin mass incarnating in the 80s and 90s. This was like fucking go time. Yes, some of them came as early as 1889, but these were almost like scouts who were dropping information, channeling information, creating things that would be used by the rest of us at a later time. For example, one of the examples that I personally love and has helped me so much in my life is Neville Goddard. Almost all of his teachings and books and lectures are from early to mid 1900s. He channeled so much information that supports my mission right now today in 2024. So the mass incarnation for blue rays was 1980s to 1990s. That's when the bulk of us were going to arrive. Typically, blue rays are no longer born after 2012. It is very rare. There may have been a special exception made, a very certain mission, maybe something happened with an earlier incarnation or a parallel incarnation and they wanted to try again, they wanted to reformulate, but that's very rare. So if you've had a child after 2012, they are much more likely to be a rainbow child, and after 2020 to be a crystalline child than to be a blue ray. And why is that? Well, that's because the blue rays said we'll take the bulk of the karma and like we'll do our damnedest. And even to this day, like we're still doing our damnedest, where most of us are millennials, and most of us, you know, the joke about millennials is like how fucking crazy different our lives are from our parents' lives. And to me, having this understanding, I'm like, well, it makes complete sense. The blue rays born in the 80s and 90s were born into a high karma atmosphere, resulting in trauma, an attempt to reconcile the trauma and resolve the karma within this lifetime. That's why so many are on healing journeys or going to therapy or plant medicine. I mean, you see it everywhere if you're paying attention. You see it on all the social media channels. How many people are waking up to connecting the dots about childhood trauma, right? Which is kind of the point of karma making itself manifest and known from the packet. And then they deal with the negative impacts of the karma until it triggers that awareness and the revelation is made about the karma and then the resolution of the karma. I mean, honestly, it's all in a day's work. I know a lot of you guys do this work every single day and you've been doing it for years, and it's like, it's all in a day's work. It comes up, you resolve it, you clear it, you're good to go. And every single time that you clear one of these codes of karma, one of these little spin points, one of these little packets, you feel lighter. You genuinely feel lighter. You feel better. You feel like I'm so much more clear now than I've ever been. I feel like I can see myself and others more clearly. I feel like there's less negative energy trying to channel through my body. I mean, it's great. I love feeling so clear, especially when you realize that you can clear like huge amounts of it at one time. And then you're just a totally different person, different timeline. You feel so whole. You feel so magnetic. And to help you get there in your own journey, I want to talk about some of the core wounds of the blue rays and then what their mission is and how they are connected to, deeply connected to the rainbows and the crystalline. So The mission is born out of the core wound. And that's why understanding what your core wounds are is so important. That is essentially the manifestation of the energy as karma or as negative energy that wants to teach you, that wants to be transformed by you. And then the mission itself is born out of the core wound. And we see that if you study the gene keys, right? They say the gift is inside of the wound. It's literally born out of the wound. So number one, they tend to have a more masculine core energy. There is a little bit of imbalance in Blue Ray's energy because they needed them to be tough enough to not want to exit out because the job was going to be so hard. So most Blue Rays have a more masculine core energy. There is purposeful imbalance in their energy, and part of the mission, which you will find in your own life, especially when you've resolved most of the karma, you're feeling nice and free and clear, you will start to naturally balance out your masculine, feminine, yin, yang, input, output energy. You can use whatever words, whatever terms feel good for you, as long as you are not confusing masculine and feminine to mean male or female. That is very common. It has nothing to do with gender or the type of body that you are in. It is active or passive energy. So a lot of this active energy, and we can be a little rougher around the edges, especially when compared to our rainbow friends or our yellow ray friends. And because of the lifetimes that we are channeling that karma from, we can have a very combative energy. We can feel very deeply misunderstood. And so one of the core wounds for a Blue Ray tends to be, no one understands me. I am misunderstood. And that combative energy can get them into a lot of conflict. Likewise, they can also get very deeply attached and emotionally invested in social justice causes, in politics, in believing that their viewpoint is right, or they need to go on this, righteous crusade, that they need to fight a battle for other people. I mean, because you can imagine the recipe that created our energy. It just makes sense that you would get into this kind of illusion and that you would be drawn to those things. And because of that excess masculine energy, it's very easy for Blue Rays to go full on with polarity. To be like, no, this side is the better side. No, my team is the better team. I want my team to win. I want my side to win. Like, we make great teammates because we know that we're going to do everything we can for our side to win. But there's always going to be heartbreak at the end of the duality road, because in the end you find out that it doesn't matter what side you picked. There is no such thing as right or wrong, and even for me, we're in the middle of like the 2024 election. Like, there is a side that I feel very, very strongly about that literally calls my soul to like have a war cry, and that's what I support. That's what I believe in. I can feel that Blue Ray energy warrior coming up in me of like, I'm going to fight this battle, and I'm going to fight for those that I really care about and that I believe need my protection or could use my protection, could use my voice, could use the power of my energy for their highest good. But at the same time, I also very clearly understand the side of me that passion and that duality and that polarity is coming from. So let's jump into attachment styles. A lot of you guys have heard of attachment style theory. I think it's something very helpful for you to know about yourself, what kind of attachment style you have, because you can trace all of this back to core wounds, and the core wound leads you straight back to the karma that you came here to resolve. You're changing a belief that you have about yourself. That's really all that it is. And so their attachment style tends to be either fully avoidant or anxious avoidant. You will rarely find a Blue Ray that is an anxious energy attachment. It just doesn't align with some of the karmic energy they have around, I can do it myself, I can do it alone, I can take care of this, I can solve the issue, I can solve the problem, and I can do it all myself. And that really becomes a two-edged sword for a Blu-ray, because on one hand, they do have a really intense mission that no one can resolve your karma for you. You're the only one who can come to the understandings about it. You're the only one who can raise your consciousness around it. But on the other hand, you're also not alone. Your entire oversoul is supporting you. All of your non-physical energy is supporting you in this reality. And I talk about that in depth in the Law of Attraction episode and that masterclass that I have. So because they are usually fully avoidant or anxious avoidant, they will simultaneously want community and want to be heard and want a platform, a place for them to live out their missions, want to be seen, while also kind of fucking hating people. And wanting to be alone and wanting to be a hermit and wanting to just go in their little space and go in their little head space and do what they want to do on their own. Every Blu-ray, I swear, they have like, whether it's your home or a certain room in your home, for me it tends to be like my office, that's just like my fucking space. Like, I do not want anyone there. It's my space. It's the place I come when I like need to think. And we don't like nobody in that space, right? And so there's this kind of push-pull in the Blu-ray's energy of like, I want the community, I want to help people, I want to create this thing, I want to be seen and heard, and I want to live out these missions. I also just kind of fucking can't stand the people that I'm also on this planet with. Like, what do I do between these two total opposites? And really the first place to start is acknowledging that exists within you, right? The other really big core wound that they have is the belief of, I am not good enough. I am not good enough. I am unworthy. I am undeserving. I am bad. Like, there's something wrong with me. I'm a freak. I'm an outcast. Sometimes this comes up as like the witch wound. Like, I'm a witch, everyone is persecuting me, everything is so difficult for me, no one understands me, right? It just leads in a beautiful circle. So where this core wound is coming from is the karma packet, right? The karma says, I am not good enough. The higher awareness says, there is no such thing as good or bad. I am that I am. And the space between those two sentences, I am not good enough versus I am that I am, is the whole journey. That's the whole revelation. That's the whole resolution. And as you start to resolve some of these core wounds, you're shedding those karmic packets so quickly. I mean, millions and millions of codes are just instantly transformed, deleted, resolved. Lastly, because of the complexity of their mission, they tend to carry the negative belief, I can't do this. This was a huge revelation for me that changed everything in my life, my mission, my business, realizing that I had this very deep, hidden feeling. This feeling that my inner child, right, the immature part of ourselves, was carrying since I was born. Of like, this is so complex. This mission is so challenging. It's much more challenging when you actually get here and you start living inside of the negative energy. I mean, it's the equivalent of going from living in a palace to saying, yeah, I'm going to go live in this mud pit for however long until I decide to leave the mud pit. But I'm also going to knock myself on the head and completely forget that I chose to go from living in the palace to the mud pit. I just woke up in the mud pit. And by mud pit, I'm referring to low frequency energy. It's just a part of the old earth reality. And it truly is old, and so much of it is expired. And what I've said before that I think is very helpful, especially for Blu-rays, is to recognize that so much of that energy is expired and it only lives inside of our memory. We are the ones who perpetuate it by holding on to the past, by holding on to the world that we were born into. We were born into the mud pit, but in fact, when you look around this planet energetically, that mud pit has been completely cleaned up. And yet for so many of us, it's still very alive in our own memory. It's still alive in our families, in people that we are karmically connected to. And so it feels like you're still there. I don't want to understate how challenging this mission is. It's fucking hard. There are so many days when I'm like, gee, thanks guys. Thanks for letting me choose this for myself. Why did you let me choose this for myself? Why did you let me come here? What the fuck? And yet, of course, my higher awareness meets me every single time. And they're like, you know the law of attraction. It's challenging because you think it's challenging. It's hard because you think it's hard. Because you think that it's hard, it comes back to you in this reality as fucking difficult. Can we hold the duality of it being hard and us also recognizing that, like, we're the one holding the bag? Like, we're the one who is making it hard because we do believe that it's hard. And honestly, some days I'm just like, fuck it, it's hard. And really at the bottom of that loop is that core belief, the negative belief of like, I can't do this. This is going to be too challenging. And it will affect all of the ways that your mission wants to unfold, all the ways that you want to express yourself, all the ways that you want to be authentic, all of the things that you want to manifest and create in the lifetime. So much of that is collapsed or held back from you. You literally pushing it away because you have the belief deep down in your inner child of, I can't do this. And you've got to flip the script. You've got to flip the script to, I can do this. I mean, just feel the change in your body of saying, I can do this. Your energy starts to come back in line. You start to feel whole again. You start to feel strong again. You start to feel like I've got this. So if you've got it, let's talk about the mission, right? The main overarching soul mission of the Blu-rays, specifically with these large karmic packets, is to be an alchemist. That's the job. That's the job that you signed up for. Your job is not actually to be a warrior. Your job is not to go to battle. Your job is not to get so embroiled in all of the causes that you feel really passionate about that you end up not taking care of yourself. The job that you signed up for was alchemy. Alchemist. The Blu-rays are the magician in tarot cards. This is why magicians are associated with a dark blue cape that have stars on them, right? That's the Blu-ray. You're the magician. You're the alchemist. You're the transformer. You are here to transform karma back to love. To turn one thing, one energy into another energy. To turn a negative energy into a positive energy. It's actually an incredibly straightforward job. But we can get confused because we can believe that like we're here to create a change. So we start to project that on the external world and say, I want to change you, and I want to change that part of the world, and I want to change that part of society, and I want everyone around me to change, when in fact change is an internal game. You can't change the external without changing the internal. The chaos that you see in the external world is reflecting the karma in your internal world that you came here to resolve. The negative energy that you see in the external world is mirroring the negative energy that you came here to alchemize into a positive energy. You don't do it from the outside in, you change from the inside out. What's inside will then be mirrored back to you in the external. The external world is showing you what your job is internally. It's an X-ray, it's an MRI, it's showing you what's going on inside on an energy level that you can easily transform and start to see reflected in the external world. So you're an alchemist. And if you've been figuring out on this episode that you are a blue ray, you're going to feel a really deep resonance with that alchemy. So I want to talk about blue ray and blue flame before we get into the rainbow and crystalline souls. Sometimes I use the terms blue ray and blue flame like synonymously, interchangeably, and that is actually incorrect. I do that because I'm a blue ray and a blue flame, and there is a lot of overlap between these two groups, but it's not actually correct. You can be a blue ray and have a violet flame, and you could be a rainbow soul and have a blue flame. So they do overlap significantly. A lot of the blue rays that you meet have chosen to have as their activated psychic flame the blue flame, because it gives them access across time-space dimensions in the Akashics very, very easily, which means if they're here to resolve a bunch of karma, most of that karma was collected from past lives, and so it gives them that access to resolve that very easily, very quickly, whereas you wouldn't use a violet flame to do that kind of work. The blue flame and violet flame are psychic flames. So the blue flame is coming out of your third eye, the indigo ray, and the violet flame is coming out of the crown. You can have both of them activated. At this point, I have both activated, but you have one that is your natural fluency with the psychic world. It's the one that you're most adept at. It's kind of your go-to that you prefer, and because you prefer it, you tend to be more skilled with it. So some signs that you are a blue flame channel would be that you just tend to know things without knowing how you know them. Blue flames read other people very easily. They aren't just sensitive to energy, they read situations. They see undertones, they see facial expressions, microfacial expressions. They can read into the tone of what someone is saying and get all of the nuance from that. All of the unsaid understandings. So they read those situations and they see undertones that no one else around them seems to notice. And sometimes this can really bring up that whole I'm alone, no one understands me feeling. But the truth is, like, you have a unique energy doing a unique job. And yeah, not everyone is going to be just like you. They get very strong gut feelings. And they're like, I just know this. I don't know how to tell you how I know it, but I just know that like this is the answer or that is not the right way, because they can tap into so much energy and information. This tends to reinforce what blue rays already experience, is kind of going into hermit mode, loner tendencies, feeling overwhelmed if they have to be around a lot of people. So if you're a blue ray and a blue flame at the same time, it can feel like it's a double whammy, even though most of us are like that. The truth is that you just have to understand what your core wounds are and allow yourself to learn how to manage your energy better and better and better over time. Allow yourself to get better at it all the time, instead of holding this impossible expectation that you should just be a master of energy on day one, that you found out you're a blue ray and you think you're also a blue flame and you should have all of this figured out. The impossibly high standards are common with blue ray souls because of the really big job that they came here to do. So just very quickly, some signs that you are a violet flame is that you feel very connected to the angelic realms, super high dimensions. You don't really have any interest in the astral world, the dream world, not a lot of interest in like past lives or other planets or the galactics. You just really want to go up to like 10th, 11th, 12th dimension, hang out with angels, Elohim. You might feel called to be an energy healer, an energy worker, work with crystals. And you can absolutely activate both flames. I have them activated, but I use my blue flame every day, and I rarely use my violet flame. Only when I've got to like really go up and talk to Archangel so-and-so. And I believe I have more information on those on some of my psychic episodes. I also have activations that you can get on wellspringofficial.com for blue flame and violet flame. All right, let's talk about the rainbow and crystalline souls and how they are very deeply interconnected to the blue rays. So if you think you're a blue ray, your best friend is a rainbow. They just tend to be our closest friends or our life partners. They're like the Samwise Gamgee to Frodo, right? That's the rainbow souls to the blue rays. They are our support system when it comes to frequency. They want to help us. They want to uplift us. They're showing us the brighter side of life. They're giving us, well, these are all of the positives. And they tend to just have a little bit higher resting frequency than a blue ray who has yet to do some of this karmic resolution work. So the rainbows were another very big soul group that came in around the late 80s, early 2000s, and they incarnated all the way up to about 2015. Some of them are still trickling in all the way to today, and who knows how long, maybe all the way up until about 2030. But the vast majority of them are already here. And they also had a karmic packet, but it was much lighter than the blue rays. So you're going to find them in your soul circles and in your healing groups and in the, sound bath therapy place that you go to. You're going to find rainbow souls there. And they're going to have a really deep resonance with all of this, inner healing and consciousness work. And they're going to lift you up and you'll feel lighter when you're around them. In fact, some of them are going to be parallel incarnations. You can have parallel incarnations. An oversoul may have collected up all of the energy and necessary components for a Blu-ray incarnation and then also done a rainbow one to come here and be their best friend or to be their life partner or to be their neighbor that has helped them during a really tough time in their life. Rainbows, they don't take things as seriously as Blu-rays. They tend to be much more even in their energy. That's why they're called rainbow. They were like, actually, instead of me just channeling a single ray, I'm going to take a little bit of energy from all of the major rays, and it's going to put a nice balance in my energy field, and I'm going to be able to relate to the Blu-ray because I also have some Blu-ray in my energy. I'm going to be able to relate to the yellow rays, which is another dominant ray that came in. Like most of the boomers are yellow rays. I'm going to be able to relate to them because I have a little bit of yellow in my energy. They have an easiness, they have an evenness, and they bring the levity that blue rays really need in their life because we can tend to go into hermit mode, be alone, take everything too seriously, and really need to just reconnect with someone that brings that levity back in. So for example, my younger brother is a rainbow soul, and he was born in 1988, and I always feel so good and light and happy around him. We have a great time. It's just fun. It's lighthearted. We can talk about all the same nerdy things. And he has this evenness to his energy. He doesn't get involved in the family drama. And if he gets dragged in, he is it's like, he's just like, I can't believe like this is this is too overwhelming, right? Because he wants to be in that higher frequency naturally. Whereas, just to give you like some juxtaposition here, my older brother is a blue ray. He's 4 years older than me. My younger brother is 7 years younger than me, right? My older brother is a blue ray. And when we're together, It's like trauma dump time. It is just so fucking serious. And yeah, the conversations go really deep, but it's also just like, it can be a little too heavy sometimes. And I find that being around blue rays who are awakened, my brother has not yet awakened, but I find that being around blue rays who are awakened and know this about themselves to be much more comfortable and easygoing, less of kind of a trauma dump time. They're a little bit more self-aware. The clients that I have who are blue rays, they're awakened, they're self-aware, they are actively resolving all of these limiting beliefs, these karmic loops, all of that. And so they tend to just have a very powerful energy. I mean, they want to get up and preach, right? They want to get up at the pulpit. They want to get on that stage. They want to say what's on their heart, what's on their mind. They've got something to say. A blue ray always has something to say. Whereas a rainbow soul is perfectly happy to sit in the front row and listen. And yes. They clap at the right times and yeah, that was a great talk. I loved it. And it's well, do you want to get up and say anything? And they're nah, I'm good. And when they say it, you really, you know that it's true. You know that, they're good. And I love that for them. I love being around a great rainbow soul. They've been so supportive and helpful for this mission, while they also receive from the blue rays a lot of spiritual guidance, a lot of advice, a lot of way showing. The blue ray is the way shower. They will show you how to get there because the rainbows did come with their own little karmic packet for them to resolve. So they do experience, limiting beliefs, negative feelings, and negative beliefs about themselves. And each time they go through their own evolution of resolving that, they're just glittering. There's just this glitter to their energy. I love it so much. So speaking of glitter, let's talk a little bit about the crystalline children. I will be having more episodes about the crystalline children in the future. As that information comes to me, I will create episodes. And so it's all trickling in at just the right time. You don't have to go into scarcity and think, I need all of the answers all right now. But the info that you do need right now is that many blue rays and many rainbow souls, I haven't really discussed the other rays, but the other rays are also here with us. But most of them will have crystalline children, especially the blue rays. So this is kind of moving from one extreme polarity of cleaning up a bunch of karma and then getting to see the fruits of your labor, which is that you've literally created the energetic frequency match for crystalline children to arrive on this planet. And the truth is that they really held these crystalline souls back from incarnating until the energy could support them. Even after their official drop date of 2020, which is kind of their go time, there is a lot of uncertainty about if these blue and even rainbow souls have alchemized enough of the energy to be suitable for raising a crystalline child yet. And I say yet very purposefully because you will get there, but it is not playing out the way that it used to on this planet. We are still, as of right now, October 2024, very deep in the alchemy work. Most of us are in the middle of our alchemy work, or we're getting to kind of the last portion of it, but we're not done yet. And how the 3D world has interpreted this is that many millennials are just not having children. And that's not actually true. Most of us are going to have children, but much later than we have seen before on this planet, because the work that we're doing has to be done before these crystalline children can come live in our energy. Their frequency is too high. If their frequency is too high and you can't match that crystalline energy, they can't live in your environment. And I don't say this to make anyone feel bad or like you're not doing a good enough job. I know as a Blu-ray, it's very easy for you to go back to that limiting belief. That's not what this is about. This is about you taking your time to do the work that you need to do and not paying attention to old world timelines. Those timelines are completely obliterated. They mean nothing. You could have had a couple of kids in your early 20s, and then it's like you're like 42 and you're pregnant and you're going to have another child. Well, you were always contracted to have that crystalline child, but the energy had to match them. So yeah, there was a gap of time in between maybe the rainbow children that you gave birth to and the crystalline child arriving. It doesn't make any one better than the other, but what is so important and what many galactics want you to know about these crystalline children is that they have almost zero karma. They're not coming with any karmic loads. Their energy is going to be so free, so carefree, so light. They're going to be bright-eyed, soft-spoken, even-keeled. They're going to be peacemakers. They're going to be dreamers that will change the world. They are a very pristine part of the oversoul. And many of them are very deeply connected to Pleiadian energy that is going to become very relevant on our planet extremely soon. These are not going to be the rough and tough, tumbling children of the 80s and 90s. Some of my extended family was talking about this, they're like, well, when I grew up, we just went out and played all day in the dirt until it was, 10 o'clock at night and we were forced to go home. That's not going to be crystalline children. Yes, they will play. Yes, they will have a marvelous time, but you are going to feel what I think many parents feel anyway, that their children are living in a different reality than they are, that their children are different than they are. These are different children. Taking the approach of, I'm going to teach my child how to be just like me and I'm going to recreate my childhood for my child is not going to work very well with these children at all. If you really want to support crystalline children, create the highest frequency environment possible. Keep your space energetically pristine. Clear your home. Be ruthless with your standards and boundaries about who is allowed around your children. If you see a low frequency person trying to be around your crystalline child, they might be trying to siphon that high frequency energy. And when they're a child, their aura is very open. And so the energy just goes straight to whoever wants to siphon it. This is why people love to hold babies. Why they love to come up and ask you, like, can I hold them? And it's not that everyone who holds your baby is an energy vampire, but you need to be discerning. You need to be willing to say no. You need to be listening to your intuition if you really want to support them in the highest way possible. You need to be willing to set boundaries and say no to family members who are bringing in toxic energy around your crystalline children. And truly around children in general. But some of the other rays have a lot more spunky energy that can handle the lower frequencies. The crystalline children are not coming with any of those barriers. They're not coming with any buffers. They're not coming with any shields. They're just coming as pure light. And it is so important that you treat them as such. The word that I want to use is delicate, there is like a delicateness to them, but that's only in their infancy and childhood. Who these crystalline children grow up to be are diamond-like. The more of them that reach adulthood and can live out the mission that they are coming here for, the more completely unstoppable they will be. And I mean, they are going to be, when we say we're a new earth architect, like we're just drawing up blueprints. They're literally building the crystalline towers, the technology that is so beyond anything you've ever seen, the ability to heal the human body of any illness, any sickness, any disease easily, effortlessly. For them, these kinds of technology and this kind of crystalline way of living is completely intuitive. So I really hope that you will take that to heart. If you are planning on having kids, if you end up having one that you didn't know you were contracted to have, I really hope that you will take that to heart in understanding that the crystalline children might have different needs than some of your other children. All of these children born after 2012, these are like the real new earth leaders. Like, yeah, we're new earth leaders, but like the city hasn't really been built yet. You know, for a lot of us, it's still a concept. It's still conceptual. We're just starting over the last 2, 3, 4 years to start seeing a lot of evidence in the 3D reality of this new earth, of the changes that we're going through. But for some people who woke up in 2000, it was like, we've been waiting so long for the evidence. So attune yourself to the different needs of each of your children. Recognize that they are going to be different. And I think you're going to be able to recognize very easily if you have a crystalline child. And I hope that you'll take this to heart and just know that they trusted you with this mission. This is just a reminder of the deal that you guys made and some of the unique needs that they are going to have that are different from what you experienced as a child and growing up. As I get more information about them that wants to come through, I will download that. I will include that in future episodes. So wrapping up, if you're sitting there thinking, I'm a Blu-ray, like what the hell do I do with all of this information? Number 1, start working on those core wounds. Whatever your core wound is, the opposite of that is the truth that your soul is trying to remember and embody. Number 2, take very good care of your mind and your body. Start detoxing your environment, start cleaning up the energies, say no to toxic people, from your clothing products to your hygiene products, to the music that you listen to what you're looking at on social media, what you're watching in movies and television, the work that you do, your relationships, where you live, how you live. Start cleaning up the energy. It takes time, but it is so worth it to wake up and think, all of the work that I've done is paying off. I feel like I'm in a high frequency environment. My body feels open and clear. My energy feels good. My mind feels healthy. Thinking positively and believing in myself is easier than ever before. So there is some groundwork to do. And Blu-rays love a good job. So you can get to work on all of that. Because the truth is, Blu-rays are so fucking powerful when they are healthy. And when they have cultivated a healthy environment compared to the one that they came out of. I tell my Blu-ray client this all the time. She's going to recognize this when I say it. When you unleash your authentic energy on the world, it is going to be like an atomic bomb going off. You're going to be unstoppable, because that's just how much power Blu-rays have when you're channeling a ray from the 5th and 6th density at the same time. The work that you do, the impact that you have on this planet, it is truly going to be like the most positive atomic bomb ever. It is going to ripple across time and space and dimension. It is going to have such an incredible effect on yourself, your friends, your family, your lineage, all of that karma that you are clearing and making it possible for the new earth to arrive. So step 3, enjoy life. Because if you did steps 1 and 2, if you worked on your core wounds, and you took good care of your mind and your body, then your job is done. Just enjoy your life. You're on vacation now. Isn't that fucking awesome? You're on vacation now. And somewhere along the way, you probably learned how to create your reality. So now you're going to be creating whatever reality you want to live in. You're going to be in vacation mode. Karma's going to be resolved. You're going to be living your life more fulfilled and more healthy than ever. You get to lean back and just enjoy life. I think it's so important as a soul on this planet to not just know where you come from and why you came here and what you came to do, but also where are you going? Where are you going? You don't have to work on karma forever. Once it's resolved, it's resolved. You get to just live life. You can get stuck in loops where you're just working and working and working and working on it. Very common for Blu-rays because we can have that extra masculine energy and be obsessed with working on things about ourselves. But eventually it'll peter out and you'll realize, I don't need to do this anymore. I'm going into vacation mode. Like it's resolved. That used to be something I didn't believe. I used to believe, and I'm pretty sure I've said it on this podcast before, that we would just be doing this healing work for the rest of our lives. And at that point in my own consciousness, that's as far as I could see. I could only see the loop again and again and again. And now I've gotten to the point with resolving so much of this in my own energy that I've realized, no, there actually is a light at the end of the tunnel. You don't have to do this forever. And the more you practice, the better you get. If there is someone in your life that you think would resonate with this information, or is potentially a Blu-ray, or is your Rainbow Ray Samwise Gamgee companion in this life, please send them this episode. And you already know that I will see you on the next one.